Welcome to the digital podcast that explores how different organizations transform the way they create and capture value with digital technology. Nuno, welcome to the digital podcast. I am really excited to have you on the podcast. I know you have a lot of exciting things to say and to share about your new role and about BI4ALL. So let's get right into it.
Partner Smith, many thanks for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here. I'm delighted to be participating in this video podcast and being able to show a little bit more about BI4ALL and what we do, but at the same time, the connection with you and what this could mean moving forward. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you, Nuno. So I thought maybe the best way to start is by you introducing yourself and maybe take a little bit of time to also say about your experience. I know you've worked for the Johnson & Johnson group prior to joining BI4ALL. I think our audience would be very interested to hear how you landed as a CEO on BI4ALL, which is a very important role. And then we can take it on from there and discuss more specifically about BI4ALL.
Yeah, I've been blessed all my life with an amazing journey. And to your point, I started my career in Portugal, and I had several opportunities to work with several industries before joining Johnson and Johnson. But yes, I did work 25 years for Johnson and Johnson, and I starting in Portugal, and then most of the time through technology, working for Johnson and Johnson in the technology group of J&J. But then shortly after joining Johnson and Johnson in Portugal, I moved to Spain, and that was my first opportunity to work outside Portugal. But shortly after that, I was asked to start running a first regional organization. So it was Portugal, Spain, Austria, and Switzerland. A strange combination of countries, but we all share the same platform. It also provided me with a really nice experience diversity, because when you start putting people that has different cultures together and operating in the same group, it brings not only some challenge, but more and more different perspectives and different diverse views on how to work in a common environment. That it was really nice early experience in my career that prepared me for the future growth that I had. But then Middle East joined, then Egypt joined, then Central Europe joined, and at some point there was an opportunity for me to go to the US as a development assignment, and that's what I did. So from 2007 to 2011, I was in Johnson & Johnson US, preparing me to become the CIO for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And that's what happened. The plan came together. I ended up coming back to Europe in 2011, where I did become the CIO for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. That's the role that I had until 2015. And then at that point, I was asked to go back to the US, now as the CIO of North America. And I had that role for until 2018, where I became the head of technology strategy for Johnson & Johnson globally. Now, after that, and so I had that role from 2018 to 2018 to 2022, and a lot of things happened. So I'm the father of 3 children, and my 3 boys, they now are in their own lives. So I have one son who lives in Brazil. I have one son who lives in Princeton, and I have a younger one that is now living in Florida, but he's going to university in California, and therefore we became empty nesters. And because of becoming empty nesters, it ended up that it was time for me and my wife to come back to Portugal, our home country. So after 20 plus years of working abroad, it was time for coming back to Portugal and embrace a new part of my life. And I had this wonderful opportunity to join this company who is BI4ALL, Business Intelligence for All. That I used to be a customer of this company for the last 15 years, so I know it well from a customer perspective. But now I had the opportunity to join them, and since January I became the CEO of the company, and I'm excited with the journey that we have ahead.
Thank you for that a long introduction, but I think it was
Sorry
worth.
for a long
Yeah,
introduction.
yeah, no, but
Long,
it was
long,
worth
long life.
noting. This is valuable for our audience just to understand where you're coming from, and interestingly, how I assume it was Johnson and Johnson who was the customer for BI4ALL, and how the journey continues. And very interesting. Thank you also for sharing the family, situation there and how it affects decisions in our lives. I also had many of those situations in the past where I had to make decisions on the basis of keeping work and life balanced. So I truly appreciate that comment. So, for our audience who may not be familiar with BI4ALL, can you say a few words? Can you describe what the company does? What are the key services offered, and which sectors does it serve primarily, if there is a specific sector or if it's sector agnostic?
Yeah. So thank you for the question. So BI4ALL is a company who works in the area of data, analytics, and AI. So that's what we do, and we are in the market for the last 18 years, and in this particular space, in the area of data analytics and AI. And obviously now everyone is working on the area of data and analytics and AI. But the beauty of this company is that it has been in this space for a long time, and it has been evolving as analytics and AI and data is evolving over time. BI4ALL is also have been evolving over time. Um, we are a company that now we have more than 420 employees around the world. Most of them, they are based in Portugal, as this is a Portuguese company that was born in Lisbon and has been growing over time. But we now have people also in Brazil. We have people in North Macedonia, in Poland, in the UK, in Switzerland, and we're growing. So that's fantastic. We opened our first commercial office outside Portugal in Switzerland very recently, and we have plans to continue on that growth strategy. So what happens is data analytics and AI, it's a very broad term. And what I usually say is that digital transformation, and any company in the world somehow is going through some level of digital transformation. If it's a digital born company that are already obviously taking advantage of all of that, or even more conservative, more traditional companies that they were born in the analog world, but they now can see that through digital they can complement their offering, and they can provide a better customer experience with digital wrappers around their analog products.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, because of this explosion in digital transformation, what that brings, data. So everything that every company is going through their digital journey, what it's creating more and more and more and more data. But data is not necessarily information, and information is not necessarily insights, knowledge and insights.
Mm.
So what BI4ALL does is we help customers to turning data into actionable insights, and that it's the core of our business. That's how we help our customers to make sense of the data that they have and generate better insights so they can make better decision making. Most of our customers are actually top 500 or medium sized to large scale customers. And
Okay.
the reason for that is that you need some kind of volume. You need some level of volume to actually to be able to take advantage of the power of data and turning those data into insights. So actually our customer base, it's medium-sized customers to large customers across the world.
Okay. Can you say a little bit about what you mean by volume? Um,
Yeah,
uh, for
good
someone
question.
who doesn't understand that point, I think it's worth getting a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is not a magic number, but what I would say is that uh, now there is companies that are debiting more data, and therefore what happens is when you start having a sizable data that requires you to have some analytical capabilities in order to generate insights from it, that's when we come in. So if it's a very, very small company, most probably very basic reporting is enough. And it's not that we would not be able to support them, but quite honestly, it would be uh, basic in the terms of the analytics that you can provide on that. The more data you have, the more sophisticated you can be in applying not just visualization techniques, but also algorithms and AI to make better sense of that information. So we play in all the spectrum of
Hmm.
companies that have limited data and therefore there's certain things they can do more in the visualization side versus companies that already have significant amount of data that comes from different sources, structured data, unstructured data that helps them uh, to start generating insights that before they were not able to make.
And I guess this is important also for internal operations, but also customer facing operations, right? So these data insights that you talk about are important for both, right? On the one hand, improving operations, improving productivity, efficiencies, etc. But on the other hand, improving customer experience. Um, and maybe you can give a couple of examples in relation to the specific technologies that you or the specific types of products that you offer to your customers, and how those products enable customers to undergo this digital transformation that you mentioned, or data
Exactly.
transformation in consequence, and in consequence, digital transformation.
Digital transformation. Yeah, uh, you are spot on in the two different areas that this can be really, really, really exciting. One is internally to help to make better internal decisions, help to streamline processes, help to gain advantages on how to generate insights that didn't have before, or applying AI in internal processes that would help them to streamline in a significant way. For example, we're helping customers to streamline their supply chain by having data visualization techniques and applying AI on imaging on kits that would be able to very quickly identify from a supply chain perspective what are the missing parts of that kit and what needs to be replaced very quickly, so we can streamline the process. Before, you would need to open the kit, you need to look into it, see what was the missing parts, manually start understanding what needed to be done. And now with imaging, with applying AI on imaging of the kit, immediately you see what are the missing parts and you replace them automatically from a supply chain perspective. So for example, this is just a very quick example of how you can streamline internal processes by applying AI on imaging, for example, but also on having better and quicker information on your internal processes. But starting also with, for example, applying better techniques on how to interact externally. So, for example, we're connecting with the city hall of a major city to help their interaction with the inhabitants of that city and how they interact with the city hall. That is actually pretty interesting because what you can start seeing is that with smart cities, you start seeing a lot and a lot more data being generated across the city. And now you start being able to anticipate some of the challenges that the inhabitants of that city are actually facing on their day-to-day basis. And therefore, instead of being reactive, you can start being proactive, approaching some of the opportunities and challenges that the millions of inhabitants of that city face every day. But it also helps with how they interact with the city hall in the first place, in automation, in a way that they can very quickly extract documentation that they require from the city hall that before it would be a very manual process. So a combination between more data, AI, and better technology capabilities, it's now helping a completely different customer experience between these organizations and their customers.
Yeah. And it sounds from your examples that you're engaging in a lot of customized solutions for your clients. But I assume I had a look at your website just before the call, and I saw that you also offer a number of package technologies for data entry, for human resources, etc. So
that's correct.
I assume you get also inquiries from customers that they want a package and they'd rather go with you as opposed to a bigger let's say Salesforce or SAP or these bigger providers that also offer enterprise solutions, package solutions. Can you say what's the added value? What is your key value proposition there? And why are customers preferring you to come with a solution as opposed to someone that's more established in the market?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's we have both. So to your point, a lot of the work that we do is based on the customer need, on some of the challenges that customers are facing, and we work with them to understand what is the right solution to offer those insights, that better analytics for their problem. So that's part of what we do, and it's a significant part of our business. On the other hand, as you said, and you saw on our website, we have what we call accelerators. So you can imagine that, for example, we have a solution that helps to do document management and being able with not just OCR, but also with artificial intelligence to start identifying within structured and unstructured documents how you can start extracting information out of that. So you could start from scratch, or you could start from what I call an accelerator. That is a product that helps to streamline the time of implementation. You already have a starting point, and then from that starting point, you can still adapt it to your customer needs. You can still customize it based on some of the level of what you need that product for. but it's a huge accelerator in the implementation.
Mm.
Why would customers work with us? It's because either their volume, it's not big enough that justifies those big packages that you see on the market, as you referred, or because quite honestly we can very quickly implement something that they can start working on, and that they can start taking advantage of the value that we bring, and then it can evolve over time. But those products that you were referring, I call it more as accelerators.
Mm-hmm.
That helps to reduce the implementation time. And then, for example, dashboarding, and you need dashboarding for your business, and you can start from scratch, or you can already start with by providing some basic dashboarding with analytics, and then you can build on top of that to customize what you need for your customer.
Yeah. You do offer, you mentioned that you have an 18-year-old history and you started with business intelligence. So I would assume that you have internal skills and capabilities to do this data analytics and AI, and that's where your expertise lies. I wanted to, given all the hype on ChatGPT 4, and all the discussion that has been taking place recently about augmenting capabilities as opposed to replacing workers. And you must have heard of Microsoft's recent announcement with their Copilot that is being integrated across their Office 365 products. So I assume a lot of companies now are thinking, okay, how can I take a tool like ChatGPT and build customized solutions for my clients that would enable them to do their work much faster, much more intelligently than if you are getting a package solution, as you said. So it would be great just to get some insights and while also highlighting some of your own skills and capabilities in this area.
Perfect. Yeah, it's the question of why now, and why is this becoming so hype right now, and the ChatGPT and other things that we're seeing emerging in the market. It's the combination of three things. First is that exponential growth of data that I was speaking about just a few moments ago. With all this digital transformation, all this IoT, all these digital twins, all these new digital wrappers that we have, these sensors that we have across so many elements. And when I mean sensors, I don't mean just IT sensors. I mean sensors in the capability of bringing more data into the organizations. There's an explosion of data. So that's fantastic. The second part is actually the technology capability that we have now that we didn't have before. And I'm not even speaking about quantum, and when we will get into quantum, that is still a few years away from a more commercial market perspective. But even if we don't speak at that level, but we speak about the computer power that we have right now, that things that used to take days and hours to run, we are now able to run in just a few seconds. That is the second biggest major element of the transformation that is happening. And then you apply the third element of the magic triangle, is you apply AI, machine learning, algorithms that are able to exponentially extract new information that we didn't have access before. So think about it. You have a triangle between data that is growing dramatically. You have technology that now has computer power that we never had before. And we have now ability to build algorithms that takes advantage of machine learning and AI to truly generate new insights that we didn't have before. So this These three things are changing the way that every company, every human being is able to consume data in a new way. And ChatGPT obviously brings these three concepts together in the full example of what we're speaking about. When you bring all the internet together until 2021, and you make it available to start extracting information out of that. What I do say is that this is amazing. This is amazing because it helps with better decision making. And if you think about what is the challenge of the organizations of what they're facing today, is in a world that is very very volatile, that you see challenges coming from so many different places, either if it's economic situation that we're facing, if it's the war situation that we're facing, if it's the social challenges that we're facing around the world. One thing for certain is that we have all this volatility, we have all this uncertainty in the markets. What you need as a leader, what you need as someone who runs organizations in an environment like this: data, insights. You need better insights to help you with better decision making. And this triangle of more data, better technology power, and machine learning AI that helps you to create new insights, it's helping everyone to make a better decision making. So I don't see it as a threat. And I know that there is a lot of hype around ChatGPT and some very famous people coming out and say, "Look, we need to stop these." Um, I actually have a different approach. I feel that all these new technologies help us to complement whatever we had before, complement it with better insights, with better opportunity to make better decision making or making better tools. However, let me say this very clearly. I usually use the example of electricity. So I don't think that nobody would dispute that electricity is a good thing, right? If we're having this conversation right now, it's because we have electricity that supports the infrastructure that we're using. It doesn't mean, though, that you bring your two fingers and you're going to put your fingers in the electric plug, right? Because if you put your fingers in the electric plug, you're going to get burned. So I'm saying this in the spirit of all this technology, everything that we now have access to, all these new machine learning AI algorithms that are actually bringing tremendous amount of new insights. You need to deal with this with responsibility, with ethical elements associated with this, with being very alert for the challenges and for the constraints that we should be using this everything that is available to make good use of it, and not making sure that we go and we start exploring these areas in ways that would harm society.
Yeah.
And it's with excitement that I see that not just regulatory bodies, but also ethical ethical governance bodies are emerging to make sure that companies know what they should do and not do. Well, I say just because you can do it, it doesn't mean that you should do it.
Yeah.
And I feel that these ethical elements associated with this conversation are really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in relation to your customers, this is important in relation to enabling them to navigate this complexity,
Exactly.
right? Because, as you say, it's not always that the best solution will come from these large language models or these, large internet-based or web-based models that everyone's talking about, but rather, developing more customized solutions with the right insights that are personalized for those customers, right? And I think
Absolutely.
that's what that's what you were implying there. That not everyone will benefit, or not necessarily. They don't have to benefit from this type of technology advancement before we know the implications of it. There are other ways of benefiting from technology that are perhaps more appropriate, more customized to individual customer needs. I think that's what essentially you're saying.
Completely spot on.
So just one last point about BI4ALL and its business in relation to your partners, right? And I realize you have a lot of partners. How maybe you should mention a few, and then say how you go about um, addressing problems within customer organizations with your partners, and what is the, how do you manage that process? What is the, I guess there are some governance issues you may want to talk about, but also in relation to building value complementarities with your partners, and how you
Exactly.
achieve that.
Exactly. And I see partnerships in three different ways. So we have our technology partners, and I'll speak a little bit more about them. We BI4ALL is a company that is technology agnostic, but we have preferred partners and technology partners and inside knowledge about those technologies that makes us really strong in those areas. We have commercial partners that are other companies that support. They are in different markets, and they, for example, they could play in areas like transactional systems, like SAP and Salesforce and so on. So transactional systems that operate at the transactional level, but they don't have the analytics capabilities on top of those transactional systems, and therefore BI4ALL complements their offering of those commercial partners, where we can go together and we bring the data analytics and AI part on top of their offering. And then we also have partnerships with education institutions that I'm very happy about, and I know that this is special in our conversation today, where we have a very strong relation between the academia world and the technology corporate world, to make sure that we can complement each other. And that I'm seeing with a lot of enthusiasm how between these educational partnership, educational institutions and BI4ALL partnerships, how we can gain from each other from a talent perspective, from making sure that talent can put on real challenges that we are working on, and that is a win-win. But the core of your question, I think it was our technology partnerships. And as I mentioned, we are technology agnostic, but we work very strongly with Microsoft, with Google, with AWS on the platform side, those three areas, with the major cloud providers that we have around the world, where we do a lot of work in Azure, in the Google Cloud, in AWS, and so on. Having said that, we are also working not just on the full stack of that with, for example, Microsoft with their Power Platform, where Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, and so how all of that technology stack comes together. But what we also see is that in the past, you would be able to dominate a technology and you would be in business for a long time. What we see now is that there is all this emerging of different technologies, that they all come together in an ecosystem that needs to work very strongly to provide the right solution to our customers, like Databricks, like Snowflake, like Colibra, like, and and what we see is that it's a challenge, but at the same time an opportunity. It's a challenge because from a talent perspective, you need to make sure that you have the right talent that is able to operate within this broader ecosystem. But it's also an opportunity because it provides opportunity for people to have better skill sets, to upskill on their knowledge, and for the companies that can provide that holistic package that comes together when you want to support a particular solution. Obviously, we have a competitive advantage with that. So we are very versed in a broad set of technologies where we are certified by them to make sure that we can represent them properly. And we work with them also in terms of how we come together to our customers. And therefore, if we come supported by Microsoft, Google, AWS, Databricks, Cloud, and Cloudera, Snowflake, all of those helps us to be a win-win partnership to come together with our customers with a stronger value proposition.
That's very interesting, and I've had this discussion with other guests in previous podcasts that being technology agnostic allows you to form ecosystem relationships with multiple different partners. So it's almost like, I mean, you have win-win scenarios for all of those, but you are essentially in a very advantageous position because you can integrate with all of those technologies, as opposed to only playing by the standards of one specific vendor, that would right compromise some of the solutions that you offer, but also compromise the customers that you select, depending on
Yeah.
what the infrastructure of those customers are, right?
Exactly, Panos.
Yeah,
That's exactly right. So most of our work is done in the infrastructure of our customers. So if they have a very strong Microsoft environment, for example, that goes from Azure all the way to the Power Platform, and they have that strong presence internally with Microsoft, we will operate in their infrastructure setup. But then we go into a different customer that they are actually working with in a Google environment, and they want us to build solutions in their infrastructure, and we are ready to do that. And therefore, it helps us to make sure that we adapt for the customer needs and making sure that we can provide the right solutions to them. The other thing that I would say is that it's more tool belts, it's more tools under your belt. Uh, when you are isolated in a particular stack or particular technology, uh, you are specialized in what that technology can do, but you may be more limited in what you can offer because you are limited to that tool set. If I'm able to have more tools in my belt, then I can approach customers with a broader variety of solutions that would meet their needs at at the level that they want, and not necessarily what I need to impose to them.
yeah, yeah. So, in the beginning of your introduction, you said that data, essentially, if you're a digital company, even if you're not a digital first, if you're an incumbent thinking of doing digital transformation, you have to deal with data, and essentially, BI4ALL is a partner that enables your client organizations to undergo digital transformation with data, right? Can you take us through that process? Maybe give an example of how are approached by the customers. What happens in the meeting? How do you
Yeah,
define the problem? Then how do you come with solution? I think it's an important process, and maybe
no,
you can
it,
shed some light on that.
it's a great question, but the answer is every single engagement is a different one. It starts in a different point, and therefore it's difficult to illustrate what what is the standard approach that we do. Because and the reason why this happens is that our customers, many of them are in different levels of maturity
Hmm.
of their journey. So that is a very important starting point. Some of them are very specific in a particular need that they have, and they just need a really very specific way of addressing that specific challenge. Others, quite honestly, they are a little bit more in the, oh my God, I have all this data now. What am I going to do with this, right? So how can I extract insights from everything that is going on? So we work across all of that level. There is also a maturity journey in terms of descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. And I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit more into some more deep in this conversation, but it's very important because we have customers that they are in a maturity level that they are really, really happy just to be able to report what happened in the past. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. All organizations, they need to report what happened in the past, right? What was my sales? How many customers has been visiting our shops? How is this? All of this is fantastic, but it's still just reporting what happened in the past. Then you start having customers that they start having kind of a control of what that happened. You don't need to be perfect on that to start exploring other areas, but you start getting into predictive and you start saying, okay, if with the experience of what I have from the past, if I would do nothing and if I would just allow these things to continue into the future, help me understand what could happen in the future by my historical information, and that is fantastic as well. So with that, you start seeing, okay, from my supply chain perspective, for example, I usually was able to ship, I don't know, I hope I'm not doing publicity, uh, 1,000 bottles of water for these customers. So it's expected that next month I'm going to send 1,100, 1,000, and so it starts getting into predictive based on historical information and and gets into what could happen in the future. But then we also have customers that they are already going into prescriptive, and meaning that they are actually applying very sophisticated algorithms with machine learning to truly better understanding what should happen in the future to maximize my revenue, to maximize my goals. And that's so as you can imagine, sorry, it's a very long answer,
Yeah.
but depending on where you are in that journey, the point of contact, the where you start, it's
Yeah.
very, very different. The other part is we're now seeing a tremendous need for data governance, data strategy, data management, all this data. Um, everyone is saying, look, we have more data than we ever had before, but is that data accessible? Is that data actually democratized across the organization? Is that data actually in a way that it can be seen across the value chain of the organization in a smooth way? So what happens is with more and more data being generated, it starts also for companies that are already very sophisticated, they now start seeing the challenges that comes associated with data governance, with data management, with data, with, 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 with data overall, and that's a huge part of where we can engage as well.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, and I totally appreciate the point about depending on the digital maturity of the client, the transformation journey differs, but also the point that even digitally mature organizations are faced with new needs
Absolutely.
based on new developments that are happening in the market, with their competitors, with their clients, etc. Right?
Yeah, it's really really fantastic because quite honestly, what happens is you're never happy, or as someone said in the past that I really like is whilst you're happy, you're never satisfied. Uh, so what happens is when you achieve a certain level of goal, whatever that goal was, and you achieve that goal, immediately you start seeing what else can you go after, what else could you do that could continue to improve your access to information that would help you to have better decision making. Regardless of where you are in your maturity journey, you are always looking for more, and that makes our life really, really, really interesting and exciting.
And can I ask, in relation to, obviously you're focusing primarily on business intelligence problems, data problems, etc. But um, you are essentially potentially constrained in the solutions that you're proposing, given what the underlying infrastructure of the clients are. So you may be proposing X, but that X is not possible because you're dealing with a number of legacy systems, a number of legacy operations. So in those occasions, how do you, I mean, I guess your role then changes to one of transformation consultant, right? Where you say,
That's exactly right. That's
listen,
what I
right?
was going to say. This is really, really, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. So uh, people comes with really, really high expectations of what they can do because they hear all of these things, chat GPT right now. Of course, now everyone wants to, and then obviously everything depends on the accessibility of data. But by the way, this data is not just restricted to internal and very structured data. Now, the beauty, and ChatGPT is just the extreme of what I'm speaking about, but the beauty of data is that today you can work with unstructured data in the public domain to complement what used to be your only source of data, that was your structured internal data, right? So now you have all of that. However, if that data is not accessible, if that data is not uh, governed in a way that you can start actually operate with that data in a good way, if you, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you need data, and you need quality data to get quality
Mhm.
insights, and therefore uh, trying to apply a very sophisticated model on garbage data or on not available data, it will not give you anything. So in many cases, what happens is customers come to us with very high ambitions, and we need to bring back to reality to understand, look, guys, let's work on your data. That is not as exciting and as show off that you can show to your board or to your customers. However, if you don't do that work underneath to make sure that you have quality data, that you have accessible data, that you have something that you can work on, then obviously whatever you put on top is not going to work. So, but by the way, you don't need to be perfect to actually to start showing something. That's the other part that I always tell people is uh, you don't need to. First of all, big mistake is trying to boil the ocean. We need to have everything figured out, or we need to go after. No, very small, very small use cases, very small use cases that can show the value that you can bring it's better than trying to fix everything before you try to do something. Not just because you will never have everything fixed, but because you're losing a lot of momentum and a lot of time generating quick wins that would help you to start with your journey much quicker. So you don't need to have everything figured it out underneath, but you need to have some quality, some element of data quality and data accessibility in order to be able to work.
Mm-hmm. And in the case where you have to get rid of some of the legacy systems, do you that's I assume that's where your technology partners will come into play, and you're saying, well, we partner with X, they can help you with your transformation journey. This is essential if you want to achieve the business intelligence insights that you're seeking.
Yeah, yes, but there is an end. On replacing the legacy systems that you are referring to, absolutely. The good news about data analytics and insights is that you don't need to have all your legacy figured it out before you can actually start extracting value from your current data. Meaning you can very easily put a data layer on top of all of that legacy that brings you insights from very different sources, and you can start generating insights from that data layer whilst you are doing your legacy transformation underneath. Legacy transformation is very lengthy. Legacy transformation is very costly. And what I would say is, don't wait to have everything figured out in the plumbing to start being able to generate insights that you could create with a data layer on top. And from that data layer, you start operating based on that platform rather than uh, the legacy systems that you have behind. Provided that they can generate data, you can replace the legacy systems at the speed that you can, whilst you are already generating insights on top. Make
And
sense what I'm
that's
saying?
yeah, absolutely. And the way I'm interpreting that is that you are essentially providing agility to your
Yes,
customers. I mean,
exactly.
that's a key value proposition right there,
That,
right? That you're
that's a key value proposition. Absolutely.
right, right. Um, so let's move on to some of the key challenges that you face when helping some of your customers transform their businesses with data analytics. I mean, we discuss some of these things, but maybe be a little bit more explicit
Yeah.
in on the challenges.
The challenges comes from data, most of them. Uh, first first of all, the how is that data accessible? How is that data being governed across the value chain of the company? How is that data being democratized in a way that can be used across the organization? That is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing. Is everyone is creating data, but it's not because everyone is creating data that that data is actually accessible in a way that organizations can take advantage of it. That, for me, it's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, and that's why our services on data governance, data management, data strategy are actually becoming more and more relevant,
Mhm.
and we're seeing more and more demand on that because, hey, we now have all this data, but we don't know what to do with it. We don't even know how to get get a sense of how we can use that data across the value chain. Also, because data sources are becoming more and more spread. So before, as I mentioned in one of the questions before you would be limited to the data that was being generated by your transactional systems,
Mhm.
uh, your ERP systems, your Salesforce systems, your whatever, right? But now, no, now that's just a tiny, tiny bit of the data that is actually accessible to you to understand how you are operating in your market. And therefore, that brings a completely different complexity in terms of how you can use publicly available data, unstructured data to complement what you used to have on your structural side, internal structural side. That for me, it's one of the biggest challenge. The other biggest challenge is what I said earlier as well, is that customers come and they try to boil the ocean, and they try to bring with a big thing, and quite honestly, that sets everyone for failure. First, because the organizations, they don't have the maturity and the skills to actually to be able to embrace something as big all at the same time, and they expect big results, and then they many times they don't get it, and because they don't get it, it gives a bad impression of what could be done, and everything falls apart, rather than being very specific on what is the problem that they're trying to solve, and start being specific and small on what you can do and do it right. And when you do right one, immediately, as I mentioned before, you go and you try to address the next one, and you try to address the next one, and the next, and then all of a sudden you start having uh, an organization that start driven by data and by insights. This big thing about data-driven organization, it's amazing, but it's very difficult to achieve. Like, think about an organization that has 100,000 people spread across the world, and now this organization is data-driven. You need to upskill the organization. You need to have opportunities to demonstrate what you can actually do when you have this element of solutions, and then from there grow. So I would say for me, it's the two biggest challenges. One is the accessibility of good quality data that you can actually start generating good insights. And the second is everyone trying to boil the ocean and trying to go after big things, when actually it's more successful if you start addressing specific problems that you have and how you can answer those problems in the right way, and then you grow from there. Last but not least, it's everything that I was mentioning about ethical, regulatory, associated with data. That is very important. And I don't see that as a challenge, I see that as an opportunity. Companies that are responsible and ethical in the use of data will have a competitive advantage over time, because it's what I said before. It's not just because he can do it that he should do it, and it's not just legal or regulatory constraints. It's also about ethical considerations that you should have when you're looking at the capabilities of today.
So in fact, Nuno, as you were talking, I was also thinking the same, that some of these challenges present themselves as opportunities. I was thinking, something that we discussed earlier about your packaged solutions. I would think that some of the common challenges that you have experienced with your clients have probably created opportunities for you to develop packaged solutions to address those specific challenges. I guess the data governance, data management frameworks came out of that. And that was my first point, and I see you nodding, so I'll move on to the second point, which is related. This idea of or the challenge of jurisdictional, ethical, management of data, especially across geographical areas, right? You're dealing with clients that could be spread not just the EU, but maybe North Africa or UK or US or other places. And um, I'm interested, given that you're technology agnostic and you're dealing with multiple vendors, how do you manage um, data across platforms and across geographical jurisdictions?
Yeah. One of the beauty of our business is that we work. Our biggest customers are actually industries that are highly regulatory. So, for example, we work extensively with life sciences. And as you can imagine, pharmaceutical companies, medical devices customers, and so on, they have high level of regulation that we need to comply. The second are banking and insurance, and they are heavily regulated because of the industries where they operate, or transportation, or energy, or other industries that they all observe high regulated environments. And that helps us a lot. That helps us a lot because they are already tuned to operate in a regulatory environment where uh, those considerations, they need to be top of mind, even in their analog business, even in their traditional business. They were already operating in a very highly regulatory way. Therefore, when we speak about regulatory constraints and regulatory considerations associated with data, like data privacy and uh, data elements that they need to be considered, they are much more tuned to have those conversations with us. So that's one part. So that's the good news. The other good news is that what we see across geographies, as we were speaking about, yes, it brings some challenges, like, for example, on having customers that spread across different continents and how data can be available across different geographies, or how our resources can work across different geographies. But at the same point, what we see is that whilst Europe is further ahead in terms of some of the regulatory considerations that we put on data, you see the United States and some areas of the United States catching up very quickly to the same level of, and others will follow as well. Having said that, I feel that this is all still very early stages, very early stages. What I like to see is that even the regulatory bodies are working with these industries to help understand what we can do and what we should do, because they are learning as well, right? So that there is so much involvement and so quickly that even the regulatory bodies are still trying to understand how to regulate in this environment. And the other part is that it's these ethical bodies, ethical governance bodies that are emerging, that goes much beyond the legal regulatory constraints, but goes more into ethical AI and seeing we speak about explainable AI to help understand what's behind the model, so we can see if the model is actually biased or less biased, and trying uh, to to have some insights behind the black box. And that is actually I see all of that as good news, because, as I mentioned, electricity is very powerful, but you don't want to put your fingers in the electric plug. And I feel what I see about these ethical governance bodies emerging in the organizations, it makes me feel better on how these data, technology, and AI are all coming together to provide solutions for these organizations.
Thank you for that, Nuno. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you're dependent on your customers' knowledge of their specific regulatory requirements, and then working with them to address them or to stay in line with.
It's time with that. We stay in line with that. We need to make sure that we operate under their 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 considerations and their necessities. At the same time, that we can also help. We can also help elevating the bar and making sure that in some cases uh, we can be consultants in showing some of the challenges and opportunities that our customers should think as they are considering their solutions.
So I want to now move on to the long-term growth strategy of BI4ALL, and I know you mentioned in the beginning that you are already thinking and in fact growing into new markets. So what are some of the challenges and opportunities in your growth strategy? So, for example, who are your competitors? How are the markets reacting? And we mentioned ChatGPT, but obviously there's other technology challenges ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you for allowing me to speak about the vision of BI4ALL. Uh, it's based on certain elements, but first of all, it's international growth. We're excited about our growth. We are an 18-year-old company, as I mentioned, so we're not a startup. We grew 24% last year in terms of revenue. We're making significant growth in terms of number of resources and the number of talent that we have in the organization. We're now 400 plus, and we want to be 500, 600 very, very quickly. And therefore, it's all a path of growth, and this path of growth is exciting. So that's the first thing. The second thing is talent. Talent, especially in this case, it's the good news is that it's a very, very attractive place because every single organization is facing these challenges and opportunities that we have been speaking over the last hour around more data, more needs for having better decision making, and therefore these the area of data analytics and AI, it's a very, very nice area to be playing right now. The challenge is that the talent associated with these areas are in high demand, of course, and it's also a talent that requires, as we were explaining before, requires to be up to date very, very quickly because uh, all of these technologies and capabilities are evolving really, really fast. So it requires that first you have the right talent in your organization to a level where you can scale, but you also need to have the talent upskilled to the right level of knowledge, technology knowledge, but also uh, more soft skills knowledge as well to be able to face the challenges, but also the opportunities that they face. And then obviously the last one, it's associated with how do we grow from a commercial perspective as well as how we grow from a talent pool perspective. And from a commercial perspective, uh, as I mentioned earlier, we just opened our first international office outside Portugal that is in Switzerland. It was strategically positioned because of our customer base in Switzerland and how that allowed us to grow from there. But I'm hoping that that's the first of many that will come in the future as we get closer and closer to our customers from a commercial perspective. And we have customers spread across the world. Therefore, you should expect that our customer intimacy and our customer presence with those customers is going to increase. The second part is from a talent perspective, from a talent pool perspective. I mentioned that most of our resources are based in Portugal, but we already start having resources in different areas of the world. What we would expect is also to create new nearshore centers that are not just in Portugal, but are based, for example, are we going to have a nearshore center that is going to support our North America customers? And therefore, should we look into, we already have several resources in Brazil, but should we look at Latin America as a pool of talent resources that can support better our North America customers on the same time zone? And you spoke about data privacy considerations as well. But are there opportunities to build new nearshore centers also in Europe to support our European customers in a better way and in a scalable way? So it's all a journey of growth that excites me a lot. Growth both commercially as growth of talent to support the engine that allow us to grow commercially as well.
That's great, Nuno. And I don't know if you want to add anything else in relation to the strategic plan of BI4ALL or whether you covered it.
It's covered in this. What I would say is that there is definitely markets that are very keen for us to make a stronger impact. Either if it's Switzerland, if it's the Nordics, if it's Western Europe, and if it's North America, those areas are going to be our key focus from a growth perspective. But I don't want to leave the call without recognizing that we are a very proud Portuguese company that has been established in Portugal, that has a very strong customer base in Portugal, and we are proud about the work that we do in Portugal. Portugal is becoming a really nice technology hub for Europe. We need to thank events like Web Summit and others that has put a lot of attraction on the Portuguese market, but also Portugal. In many cases, I've seen references of Portugal is becoming the Silicon Valley of Europe, and I can see why. I can see why. We started our podcast by explaining my international journey across multiple geographies around the world. And I can say with authority that Portuguese talent can compete with any talent around the world. And at the same time that we can be very competitive as well. Not just compete in terms of quality and in terms of delivery, but also be very cost attractive as well. And therefore it puts a very special part for us to be able to be successful in the growth strategy that we have. So proud of our Portuguese roots, proud of being a part of this technology hub that is emerging in Portugal for the world, but at the same time going after international growth. That's what's going to sustain our ambition moving forward.
That's great, Nuno. And we can put in the comments section of the podcast, we can add a few links if you like of events that are happening in Portugal, specifically to BI4ALL and the talent events that you're organizing there, but also potentially elsewhere in Europe. We can add those, absolutely.
Appreciate it with pleasure.
Nuno, it was a great pleasure to have you on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversations. I learned a lot, and I wish you all the best in your role as CEO, and I hope that your growth plans are realized.
Thank you so much, Panos. It's been a pleasure. As you can see, I have a lot of passion to speak about this because it's the reason why I changed my life, and I wanted to make sure that we have the opportunity to make this impact of data analytics and AI in the customers that they serve, but also the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about myself, but more importantly, to tell about BI4ALL and how you're helping to put BI4ALL on the map. So I appreciate for the opportunity, and count with me anytime.
Thank you, Nuno. I'm not sure I'm putting BI4ALL on the map, but I'm happy to contribute. And I'm sure we'll do other events, and we've discussed privately about opportunities in contributing either to Portugal or to the UK on
Okay.
similar types of discussions and events. So thank you so much.
Looking forward to it. And thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity.